begin with the ending in mind in his very famous book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. While that is excellent advice that you should define your goals and think about where you're going, this morning I would like to encourage us to also end with the beginning in mind. If you have been a parent or been around children in the last 40 years, you might recognize this book. This very popular book is the story of a child trying to please a mouse. So it goes, if you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to ask for a glass of milk. And when you give him the milk, he's gonna want a straw. And on it goes. And as you read the book, you go on this journey of cause and effect with this child. And I think the reason why this book has been so popular is that we all can relate to that overwhelming experience of starting a simple project and then having it sort of spiral out of control as one thing leads to another. And when you're in the middle of that kind of experience, you can start to wonder, why did I even start? Which is why I want to encourage us this morning to end with the beginning in mind. Stop and consider your why. So, I think one of the reasons that I was going to mention that this book sold 150 million copies. That's a lot of copies. To put that in perspective, 7 Habits of a Highly Effective Person only sold 40 million copies. So apparently a lot of us need the encouragement of what to do when you're in the middle of one of these spirals. So you may wonder why I'm wearing this outfit. You might think it's because Lynn encouraged us to be a little silly today, but this actually is the exact outfit that I wore 2.5 weeks ago when I decided to do something that I've been planning to do for a really long time. I have chickens and I have 5 aging hens, and I wanted to add chicks to my batch. I wanted to get maybe 4 or 5 chicks. And so Saturday morning, I put on my favorite cowboy boots, my favorite flannel shirt, and I headed to our big box farm store because I heard that they had just gotten in a shipment of red star hens, and that was exactly what I wanted. Not hens, chicks, sorry. And so I headed off to the store. When I got there, I kind of noticed a few things were off. The attendant didn't look like she knew what she was doing, and the chicks seemed just a little sleepy, but I really wanted these chicks. So I went ahead, bought them, and brought them home. When I got home and I was putting them into their brooder, I noticed something a little odd. One of the 3 chicks was a lot lighter in color than I thought it was. And so I looked it up online, and sure enough, with red star chicks, the blonde ones are not hens. They're very roosters. And then the other 2 chicks that were darker colored, I noticed that they seemed really lethargic. And in fact, within an hour, the first chick died, and the next morning, the next chick died. So here I was, hoping to get 4 or 5 hens out of this, and here I have 1 dead chick, 2 dead chicks actually, and 1 who seems like he's gonna be a rooster. So if you've ever raised chickens, then you know you cannot have just 1 lone chick. It just doesn't work. So I started calling around and tried to find more chicks. And I called our local co-op, and I found out that they had gotten 1,000 chicks the week before and sold out in hours. Wow. Yes. In fact, there's this whole national chick shortage happening right now. And so they said, if you want chicks, you're gonna have to get here 3 hours before we release them to the public. But you have to wait till Friday. So I was like, oh. So I went to our other big box farm store, and I called them, and they said, we won't get our chicks till another 3 days. So I was like, I don't know what to do. I gave my chick that was surviving, I gave my chick a mirror and a stuffed animal. Just said, we're just gonna have to wait, see what happens. So 3 days later, I made it to the other big box store, and I rushed in, and the first thing I heard was silence. There was no cheeping. And they said, sorry, we didn't get the chicks today, you're gonna have to come back tomorrow. So I came back the next day, and I got there a few minutes after 8, right after the store had opened, and the parking lot was almost empty, but there was this parade of women with their little boxes cheeping walking out. And I was like, oh no, I'm too late. I ran in, and there in the bin were 2 lone chicks. They weren't even the kind that I necessarily wanted, but one of them seemed to have like a problem, like she only had one eye. But I bought them because, you know, they're the only chicks. So I bought them and I brought them home. And then I was like, well, I still only have 3 chicks that I know are going to turn out well, and maybe one of them is going to be male. And so I decided to go to the co-op on Friday. So I rushed to the co-op. I was there 3 hours before they released chicks to the public, and there were 10 people in line in front of me. And we waited an hour, and then the clerk came out and said, I'm so sorry, there was a snowstorm in Iowa, and the chicks have been delayed in the mail, and there will not be any chicks today. Come back in a week from now. So at this point, I really was in a dilemma, because you can't raise chicks of different ages together very well. So I decided to wait, but I still didn't have what I wanted. I wanted to add 4 or 5 chicks to my coop, and it looks like I was only gonna get maybe 1 out of this. So this Friday, I got up super early, was at the co-op 3 hours before they opened, released the chicks to the public, and I stood in line. And it turns out if you stand in line with dozens and dozens of chicken enthusiasts, it's kind of hard to only come home with 2 chicks. So I came home with 4 more chicks. And that is how I went from 5 aging hens to a dozen chickens. And it made me think a lot about this book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. And I thought, okay, here I was in this sort of spiraling situation. And I think what it was that helped me persevere to the end is I stopped and remembered why I wanted to get chicks in the first place. Like, I want to have fresh eggs. I want to be able to give them to my friends. I like the experience of having chickens. And so that's what helped me persevere. So this morning, wherever you are on your journey in life, I just want to remind you to remember your why, so that you also can end well as you end remembering your beginning. Thank you, Madam.